You are tuned into the Dr. Tina Show with Dr. Tina Moore. For more, visit drtina.com. Oliver, welcome to the Dr. Tina Show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm so excited to finally have you here.
It's good to be here.
You came a long way.
I came a long way. It was like a 14, 15-hour flight.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so honored.
It's good to be here.
Yes. We were working on this for a few months, so I'm glad it all came together.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk all things protein today.
Yes.
Because I think it's a big topic. It's been a huge topic the last few years online, and I think there's a lot of confusion. And my middle-aged ladies in my audience, I think would really appreciate if we run through this. So
yeah, let's deep dive into it. I think it's a broad topic. There's nuances and there's learnings that, we need to apply.
Yeah. Okay, so protein powder specifically, we know when it comes to grams of protein, my suggestion to people is that they eat about, 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. Like that's usually for women, I tell them anywhere between 90 to 100 grams a day I think that's adequate.
Yes.
If you're really working out hard, maybe a little bit more. But what are your thoughts on this?
I would say that's like around the same reference range that I would go with. Like you've seen people benefit from the higher doses, especially if they're very physically active and really want to build muscle. But I think the old recommendation we had was like 0.8 grams per kilo, right? Which was like was like nothing almost, right? So I think the new dietary guidelines we've seen in the U.S. has significantly increased that. And, I think with age, you want to be putting even more attention to it.
Yes.
And not just the protein, but also like the types of protein that you're getting. So yeah, for sure. But I think before we dive too deep into protein, a lot of people like, what is protein actually? And I think obviously your listeners probably are a little bit more educated on, the knowledge of what they're consuming and how they're built up. But just like a protein in general, it's obviously part of our macros. So, we have protein, carbs, and fat. You're getting some of your calories from that. When you look at what the protein is built up of, it's built up of 20 different amino acids. And that's really, when you look at quality of the protein, that's the different amino acids that you want. And that's where, a protein source, let's say quinoa versus, steak or chicken is very different.
I think there's confusion with people when they think about plant-based versus animal-based. And I've always been a big animal-based fan just because it's easier. It gets it in. I find it easier to digest for many patients. But there are the diehard people in my audience who really want to do all plant-based. Explain why that may not be the easiest thing to do.
I think if you're also worried about calories, then when you're eating, let's say, 100 grams of a plant-based protein, and plant-based protein will vary as well. So there's some plant-based proteins such as like beans and lentils that are higher general amount of protein per serving versus or per gram versus like other like plant-based. I wouldn't even call them protein sources like rice and beans because they're actually carbs more than they're protein. But people eat them for protein, so we ought to consider that as part of it. But when you look at that, you need a quite large load of, calories in general to get the same amount of protein. And we all need to be aware of like our total calorie intake. So I think there's one component of it. The second component of it is the amino acid profile. And that's really the 20 different building blocks that are underneath each protein, what it's built out of. That varies quite a lot. And there's a score system called the DIAS score, which is basically measuring quality of each amino acid, like each protein source. So when you look at a label, when you look at the back of a food label, you will see that fat is built up of different things. You'll see that carbs is built up of different things. When you look at protein, it just says protein. But that protein is actually very, very different when you look at a protein coming from oats versus from like beef or chicken. If you look at those, you might actually need to eat to get the same amount of quality amino acid. You might eat 3 times as many grams of protein from that source. And if you look at that, and if you expand that out, that's like a kilo of rice or oat to get the same amount of maybe 100 or 200 grams of chicken or beef. So I think from that perspective, looking at those different amino acids is just so important if you want to not overeat.
Yeah, because you have to hit that leucine threshold if you want to get muscle protein synthesis, which ultimately is the goal. I mean, we're trying to build tissues. That's your whole body's made up of proteins.
Sure.
And we're trying to build tissues at the end of the day. And so I'm always looking at digestibility, absorbability. A lot of times the way that when you're thinking of plant protein or plant-based eating, that's locked behind cell walls. And those cell walls are not that easy for folks to digest. You're looking at a ton of fiber, which is not always bad. But I mean, it's a load. It's a load on the body. It's a load on the gut. And then you maybe don't even hit that leucine threshold.
No. And I think, obviously, there's some sources of plant-based protein that are higher in leucine, so you want to actually pay attention to that. And it's an easy, you can look it up on Google or any kind of like agentic tool that you're using or whatever at home. But you can actually see, and I think I encourage people to do that. So if the main source of, proteins coming from plants, and you eat lentils and beans and rice and oats and all these different things, try to look up how much leucine is actually in 100 grams of the product.
Right.
Then you'll actually see, wow, if I need to meet that, like maybe 2 grams of leucine per serving to hit muscle protein synthesis, or maybe even more, depending on age. That's something that, as we age, you need actually a higher. So it's, which is like counterintuitive. If you look at like older people's diet, you tend to see people that get older eat less and less protein, probably, and they actually might need more and more protein.
Yes.
So it's like the reverse is happening. So I think from that perspective, try to put that in, see what you're getting, and see if you can actually get up to 2.5 grams of leucine from whatever food you're taking in.
Yeah, because the amount of mass you would have to consume to hit that is pretty high.
It's pretty high.
And you mentioned something that I think is so important that we talk about. Older folks are dealing with such an increased risk of frailty, and it's not just because they're getting older. It's literally the act of aging and inflammaging and lack of movement, lack of strength training, but it's also lack of proper dentition. As they get older, oftentimes they start to lose bone structure, which means their teeth get loose. No one talks about this, and their teeth start falling out. Often they'll be widowed or on their own, and they're not cooking for 2 people anymore. So like just overall eating period goes through, it goes in the hole, and it's terrible to watch. And then I would watch my patient's muscle mass just shrink away from their body. Literally, their skeletal system, I would put them on their stomachs and I would look at their vertebrae, and you could see just the atrophy of the muscle down each vertebrae of the interspinal muscles. And it's like, it's such a problem that nobody's really talking about. Frailty is just frailty is a syndrome. It's not really just muscle wasting, And so this is where protein becomes even more important. Anabolic resistance sets in. And just like you said, like you've got to hit a higher threshold of intake, which is really tough.
And the body is the way it's designed. It's like it will start, like if you only get a little bit of leucine and a little bit of like smaller amounts, it will start with the organs. Like the most important part will get that amino acids first. So you will have a much harder time, keeping muscle mass, all the other like hair. Your body's built up of proteins. Yep. So it's like, I normally explain it with like, if you have one bottle of champagne and it's a champagne tower and you pour on one bottle in the top, it's the top 6-10 glasses that will actually get. The rest of it, the foundation will not. And the same for your muscles, right? So I think, this is something that I'm trying to preach as well at home and with my family and my mom and so on. Like, you need to get that. And if you don't eat that like larger amount of like plant-based protein in your diet to hit a leucine threshold above that, that's where protein powders or even amino acids are, it can be beneficial.
Right.
Like it's a supplement to your diet. And it's actually more important than maybe for the young boys in the gym who you like maybe generally consider taking whey protein powders or, that's where you see that. I think the benefits is so much more like evident with like an older population.
Yes. That's why I lean on animal proteins, because it's just so much easier. And most of the women in my age cohort, I did a group coaching session with a group of women last year, and it was all middle-aged and older women, and we were talking about trying to get your protein macros in, and they could not believe how much they needed to eat in order to do it. And it was daunting, and all of them were like, can I just use protein powder? Can I just use essential amino acids? And I was like, well, you can supplement with them, but you have to actually eat food. And they couldn't believe it. They were like, this is so much more than we're eating. I would say the average woman my age probably gets maybe 40, 50 grams a day, honestly.
Which is like incredibly little when you look at what is needed for having a healthy, strong body.
Yeah. And
No,
then they're not lifting weights, or they're just getting into it. They don't know,
no.
which way to go. They have sort of been conditioned. I will tell you this though, culturally, you have a family. What happens? Who eats first? You and the kids probably eat first, right? I mean, usually we feed our men and we feed our kids first, and whatever's left over, if they're seconds, everybody else gets it. And the woman tends to undereat. And then if you look at women of my generation and earlier, like my mom's age, that was that sort of like diet pills from the grocery store
And
culture, and nobody was really eating. And we sort of see that with the comeback with the GLP-1s. We're seeing this comeback of like women just not, I'll go outside to dinner with my husband and there'll be middle-aged women just sharing a meal and sharing cocktails, and they're not touching their food. And they're on GLP-1s. They're just not eating.
hungry. And yeah.
So we're just seeing this whole thing kind of play in and play out and play in and play out. And at the end of the day, I'm like, ladies, you're all going to break a hip.
It's not feasible. And I think I was trying to think back in our family when you said that, like, and my wife is going to hate me for this, but I feel like actually she's really good at now.
Is she?
To really go in, and she'll eat quickly though, because we have 3 small kids still.
Yeah.
So she would go in and probably eat pretty quickly because she doesn't know what's going to happen afterwards. And where I might sit longer and, actually end up getting more food. But I kind of like that she's like grabbing first, and she's getting really good at it as well. And I think she's also really seen the benefit.
Yeah.
She's seen the benefit of having like eating your proteins first. So instead of starting with like a lot of vegetables and a lot of fibers and a lot of other things that might make you full fast, but like eating your protein first and then having the other stuff afterwards.
Yes.
And that's how we try to think about our plates, and also for kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's super important because kids will be carb fed like all day. Everything they're getting everywhere is like 90% carbs. It's crazy, right, when you think about it. And yes, they can tolerate some carbs, and it's fine that they have some. But we always say if we can get them to have like a strong protein forward breakfast, they'll feel more satisfied during the day. And then at night we even though we do make like lunch boxes and that stuff, you can't always control the day,
right,
but you can control the night again.
Yes.
So if we can control those 2 windows and get 2 decent meals in with like a higher protein, I feel like it's so easy for them to get enough carbs. And,
yes.
Hey, maybe not vegetables always, though, like if you teach them early, they will eat it, right?
Or you sneak it in somehow.
You sneak it in, yeah. And
you smoothie it in somehow.
That's a different way of going about for sure. But I think so. But by coming back to having this conversation with my mother and so on, like being able to hit 150 or 140 grams of protein a day.
That's tough.
People they don't believe it when we go through what they're actually having on their plate over their meals. It is quite a lot, and that's where something like protein powder is just convenient.
Yes. Yes. So I had a little elderly patient that I had the honor of inheriting from my mentor, and he had taken care of her for all through her middle age. And I got her when she was in her early 90s after I took over his practice. And she's the one who really had the severe atrophy along her spinal muscles. And I couldn't get her to eat. She was in her 90s. She was so sad, and she was a widow. And finally, I just sent her out with a big jug of protein powder. I didn't even charge her. I was like, just take this and let's see what happens. And she came back 3 weeks later, and she had musculature reestablished along. And my assistant was in the room with me. And I have proof, because she was like, oh my gosh, like she could see it. I could palpate it, but she could actually see it. And I said, that's the magic of protein. Like we got to get these little gals doing it. I hear a lot of people say they don't like it though, or a lot of these protein powders have terrible sweeteners in them. And, there's just a lot of junk out there. So
for sure. And that's like a different like avenue to touch on, just to educate people a little bit on what to look for. I think first, when you look at like, how do you actually reach, 140 grams of protein over a day, if that's like your goal? Again, take it up based on your own body weight, desired body weight, and make the measurement as you mentioned earlier. But I think if you look at what does it require, how can I easily add that in? And I think the idea of having, let's say you have a good breakfast and you kind of, not everybody have eggs or, meats, so on for breakfast, right? So,
right.
But if you have like a decent breakfast and you have a protein shake on the side of that, you can fairly easily get to 50 grams of protein without even noticing it. And I think that's where it's so powerful. Like you can do that on the side, and you have like good dinner, and you're getting pretty close to reaching that goal. And then you sprinkle the day with nuts and seeds and other stuff, and you'll get there without like being. But adding that into like a And you can make it into a mix with a smoothie. You can also just mix into water and get, and out of like one serving in most protein brands, if you're getting plus 20 grams of protein from the protein powder, it's probably almost close to 8 or 10 grams of essential amino acids, right? Which is quite a lot. So, yeah, it's doable. It's not easy, but it's doable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it takes concerted effort. You just have to, I have to actually get it out of the cupboard and put it on the countertop and leave it there, or I'll forget to do it. But you're right. It's like these little supplemental moments where I just put it in some water and slam it back, and then I'm
even like we're seeing my wife actually for lunch, she loves like mixing, a bowl of like a Greek yogurt.
Yep.
And then adding like 2 or 3 scoops of protein powder, like depending a little bit on what we're using, because some of it, we have a protein powder also has collagen in it. So you would get like even a broader amino acid profile because collagen has slightly different amino acid profile. But even just with the whey protein by itself, you can get 30 grams into that Greek yogurt. And then you have maybe 15 grams from the Greek yogurt.
Right.
You add a few nuts and seeds. Again, you're above 50 grams in what looks like almost a dessert-like snack.
Right.
And I think those are the tricks that you need to, have around you. And just if you can do that once a day on top of what you're eating, it's a profound add-on to your protein goal.
Yes.
And again, it's a profound add-on to the quality of your protein goal, which I think is important as well, especially if you're, let's say, on a more plant-based diet.
Yes. Well, we try to avoid plant-based diets.
Yeah.
I'm not in my world.
No,
We're big fans of beef. We eat a lot of beef. We eat a lot of chicken. I don't love chicken nearly as much, but really just trying to make sure. I was an undereater. I was a mac and cheeseitarian, I call it. Back in, I don't know, junior high, I think early high school, I quit eating meat. Well, it's a funny story. I'll share it. My dad and I have never really gotten along. And my dad he was the vice president of a food broker, and they were the biggest meat distributors on the West Coast.
Okay.
And so my rebellion against my father was to quit eating meat. I did it on purpose. And he bought me a truck, and I put a big "meat is murder" sticker on the truck. And this was all very intentional just to piss my dad off. But in the process, I destroyed myself. Like being 14 years old, what a terrible time. Like my hormones were developing. So many things were developing, and I just shot myself in the foot on that one. And so I spent 10 years as a mac and cheeseitarian. I was chain smoking. I was living off of mac and cheese and like Snapple and Sun Chips and just carby crap. And then I found myself somewhere in the middle of college, just sick as a dog all the time, chronically ill, autoimmune diseases, malnourished, underweight. I was getting symptomology in my mouth, like on my lips and in my mouth, that I later learned when I was in chiropractic college were all just severe B vitamin deficiencies. I mean, I was literally just wasting away in front of everybody. And you don't think of those old-timey diseases as happening in modern day, but they are. And so anyway, that's my whole history with protein. And I went 10 years without any meat. And I one night ended up having a steak because I was really, really sick. And I had a weird autoimmune disease present. And the doctor, I was working for my mentor, a naturopathic physician, brilliant man. And he was like, you have to eat meat. Like the allopathic system was telling me I had to take my spleen out or go on corticosteroids.
Wow.
And he was like, why don't you have a steak? Why don't you just try?
Start here.
Just try. And so I had a steak, and I about crawled the walls that night. I felt so good. I was like, what the hell have I been doing to myself all these years? So I'm a big believer. I am an undereater. I am an admitted undereater. I'm not a big fan of eating. I don't love dealing with meat. I think it's gross and slimy. My husband is rearing cattle, like I told you about. I can't even make friends with them because I have such a strong bond with animals that I refuse to go meet them or touch them or talk to them or feed them anything because I'm like, because we're going to eat them.
Yeah, okay.
We're going to eat these cows at some point. I don't want to know the cow I'm going to eat. I don't want to eat my friend.
No.
But I am such a strong believer in the digestibility and the just the nutrient profile and how absorbable it is when it comes from a meat source. And so I live in that world, and the protein I choose is whey protein. I don't love pea proteins. I don't love plant-based proteins. I know that the argument is that, yes, they can do the same job. I disagree. And I think they can be pretty upsetting to the digestive tract overall. So I stick with whey, good high quality whey, and I eat my little, grams of protein every day. And it's just the job, right?
It is. And I think also from what we're seeing actually in the plant-based protein as well is like plant-based proteins, when you concentrate them out of the soil, are really good at concentrating heavy metals too.
Yes.
So if you add that as like an add-on to your diet, you want it to be clean, right? Like you want it to be pure because it is really just an add-on to your diet, right? And yeah, like so we've seen that. We've seen the Clean Label Project's category study in 2025 come out like saying that 47% of America's best-selling protein. So they tested 83% of the category. So it's a very representative, snapshot of an industry. And out of that, 47% was above Proposition 65 standards for heavy metals.
Wow.
And the main one was lead. And obviously, as we know, like lead is not good for you. It's hard to get out of the body. Even though the Proposition 65 standard is low, it's definitely on low side. I say when you are adding something to your diet, you want it to be as clean as possible. This is not like your guilty pleasure or something like that. This is a health food that you want to add to it. So I think when we look at the plant proteins in that study, they were, I think it was 77% of the plant proteins was above Proposition 65 standards on these heavy metals. And, that often makes way the better, at least cleaner alternative. And at the same time, you're looking at the amino acid profile. It still is better in whey protein. So rice and peas and hemp, and they can do different things, and together they might actually be more complete in terms of completeness of the protein, which means basically having all these 9 essential amino acids. That's how you talk about a complete protein versus an incomplete. And I think that it's just more. It's simpler. It's easier. It's much. Obviously, that's an independent thing, but it's most often also a more tasty option.
Yeah.
And it's something, again, when you're drinking, if you're having a hard time getting enough of it through the diet and you add that in, it's nice that it actually is easy to get through, right? So you don't have to struggle to get through. And I think if you actually create like a protein shake with, and I love that you're drinking protein shake here now. I'm joking here, but it could be. But like we can get like vegetables into the kits. We just blend, broccoli.
Yeah, you just smoothie it in.
But frozen broccoli, your preferred milk of choice or whatever, coconut water or something, depending on if you're somewhere like here where it's really hot, you want some more electrolytes, and use different frozen, berries and, broccoli, spinach, whatever, as kind of the coldness to it. And you mix the protein powder in. It's actually a really well-tasting, healthy protein and green shake you can get out of it. And especially if you use something like vanilla. Like the vanilla is easy. It can go with so many different things.
Your bourbon vanilla is so good. It's so good. A lot of the vanilla protein powders taste like cake batter to me. They've got like just a chalky cake batter taste and not so much.
It's real vanilla seeds and it's real vanilla. So it's like, it is Madagascan vanilla, right? So, and you can taste that. And also when we don't use, in our protein, we don't use a lot of like the natural sweeteners. We don't use artificial sweeteners for sure, but we actually use a little bit of sugar. So there's 3 grams of organic coconut sugar in it, which is the equivalent of taking a bite of an apple or a bite of a banana.
Right.
So it's very little when you look at how much protein you're getting in the same serving. But when you do that together with the vanilla and the whey, it becomes almost this, we call it almost like creme brulee kind of taste to it, right? And people tend to really enjoy it. But we've also had people that says like they want, and this is interesting how we develop products. So we've had 2 different flavors of our whey protein. So Puori's whey protein it comes in vanilla and a chocolate. And the chocolate one is, from a purity perspective, harder to do. Because if you want to use real organic cacao beans are also really good at accumulating heavy metals out of the soil. So we've seen that time and time again when we're sourcing the cacao beans from different manufacturers that there's natural occurring and maybe slightly high unnatural occurring, but coming from how we've been farming and so on and over time, but occurring in the cacao beans. So so those 2 would be the main flavors, and now we're coming out with a unflavored. It's available now when this podcast will be out. You'll be able to actually get, which is basically just a single ingredient. So it's a single ingredient.
It's just the whey protein.
It's just the whey protein.
Yeah.
So coming from pasture-raised whey, grass-fed, but live cattle really that are living high quality life and eating real food.
Your grass-fed whey comes from cows that are in Europe and New Zealand, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Different standards.
I think the key for New Zealand, for example, is that you can get real pasture-raised whey because they can go out all year round. So it depends a little bit. Even somewhere where we are in the Nordics, we actually we'll say grass-fed on the label because at some part of the year it's too cold to be inside. To be outside. So they will be inside and have grass. But as soon as they can roam and get out, they're getting them out, right? So, but again, that's a little bit of a weather-dependent setup. So, yeah, but I think. Like circling back to the purity of protein again, when you're adding something to your diet every single day, like you want to make sure that not just you have the active ingredient on one side, the amino acids that you're really getting out of the protein, but also that purity side of it. And that's been our focus in a very crowded, crazy industry where you've seen these studies coming out with so many brands, some of them 10, 20 times above Proposition 65 on a daily serving of protein and heavy metals, right? So the thing we've been trying to do from the beginning has been on every single batch of every Puori product, and it doesn't matter if it's protein or fish oil or creatine, there's a QR code. And that QR code is taken to a third party, actually coming out of a clean label project in Colorado, where depending on what laboratory they use, but where they will take the finished product, not the product that you'll see in, most manufacturing, you will take testing out of the raw materials.
Right.
We sent the finished product off to all these different laboratories. They will test it for, the heavy metal content, the active ingredient. So is there actually enough of the active ingredient? It's not as big of an issue in protein, but when you get into multis and other things, you see it like it's up and down. It's crazy. That's a different podcast, a different story. But I think you'll see the pesticide residue, you'll see antibiotics, you will see all the things you do not want to find in your healthy smoothie every morning or after training or whenever you're taking it. And I think that's been kind of the key. And actually right now we're sitting in a moment where we're pretty excited. We've been doing this back since Puori started third-party testing in 2009, 2010 when we launched the product. And now, I think it's a few months ago, earlier, California, for the first time, actually looking into creating a new bill. So the SB 1033, which is like for us, like almost a dream come true, because it will give the industry guardrails and there will be set a standard that you have to apply to. Meaning, and this is just heavy metals for now, which is, is the biggest issue in the protein category for sure. But that means that when these come out, and hopefully this bill will pass, California will set standards that you cannot sell protein powder or protein-added products without having a third-party test that is validated. And I think that is something we dreamed of back then when we were starting it. That's why we started the brand. So we started it back in, 2000 and, we're looking at it back in 2008 as like these consumers that were hearing from our naturopathic doctors. I was a personal trainer, but I was hearing like, if you take omega-3, just make sure that it's clean, free from heavy metals, that it's fresh, it doesn't have to be rancid, and that it has omega-3 in it. And it's like, that's 3 data points. Yeah. I'm going to go ask the company what are the data points on that. And I couldn't, on any single brand that I was reaching out to, I could get all 3 data points. So we were like, this is so interesting. Every single doctor, nutritionist that we talked with agreed on those 3 things. Nobody said, oh, you want more heavy metals in your fish oil. Right. Or, it's fine that it's rancid. Nobody said that. So we were like, everybody agrees on this, but nobody shared the data. And that's how kind of the brand was born.
I'm a fish oil snob, and that's what actually drew me to you guys. I'm such a fish oil snob, and I don't care how much it costs. It's the sewer of the sea. That's what most people are taking.
The sewer of the sea.
Steal that. Because I heard a doctor say that once. Like most of the fish oil out there is either rancid or just absolutely contaminated, and it is quite literally the fish or the sewer of the sea. And it became such a fad, right?
For sure.
Gosh, I don't know. It was early 2000s, late 1990s was when everybody started actually getting into fish oil. And there's a few brands out there, but very few that I even trust. So I was really excited to see your guys' product.
And I think fish oil it's pretty hard. Like if you want to have something that is, when it comes to your house and it's on your shelf, like the finished product has a low amount of oxidation in it and a high amount of EPA, DHA, like the omega-3s that you're trying to get out of this. There's no, in protein powder, there's a little bit of instant gratification. You get you feel satisfied. It tastes of something. But when you're taking a capsule, Like it really is just like an add-on to your diet.
Yes.
It really just has to deliver the highest possible results for you. Because there's no joy. Nobody said, I love having these 15 capsules every morning, right? It's not fun. So I think for that perspective, it's so incredibly important that those measures are uphold, basically.
Yes.
And I don't think most fish oils out there are fresh.
No, I think most of them are garbage.
So yeah.
There's a few companies doing a good job, but not many. Going back to that study on the heavy metal levels in the protein powder, were the majority of the did not actually, like, I don't worry about it because I don't work with companies that I work with you guys. So I know the QR. I would love the QR code. I didn't actually believe. I was like, they have a QR code on their products, and lo and behold, it takes you right. It gives you basically the certificate of analysis.
And it's like the finished goods product.
Yeah.
And that lab report that you get right now, we're actually sending it out. The first order, if you become a subscriber on our product and you get your first box from us, that first box we print it to you because most people didn't scan the QR code. And we wanted actually to show them, like, here's what this specific batch of protein powder that you have in hand is scanned for. So you can see all the different things you don't want in there and the things you want. And then people should use the QR code afterwards. So we highly encourage people to scan that and just, get the understanding of what's actually behind it.
Well, you think about how many products right now, protein's everywhere, right? Protein. I just ate protein popcorn the other day that had whey protein on it. I can't say I was a fan of it, but I was like, well, that's a novel idea. Put whey protein. I mean, whey protein in bars and in foods, it gets a little iffy for me. They don't usually taste that good. But I was thinking the other day when I was preparing for this podcast of just how many sources of probably just garbage protein powder has been baked into so many different foods that are out there, especially with this GLP-1 thing and all of the, basically big foods trying to get hip to what's going on. So everything's getting protein, everything's protein. I mean, I saw like protein water the other day and I was like, how do you make protein water, So anyway, I can imagine that they're using potentially or not always being conscious of using high quality protein.
I think a lot of these products are still what I would call ultra processed foods, basically, that I would try to avoid.
Yes.
And I think protein powder is a processed food. Like it is a processed because it's taken through a process, but it's like a very, I would say we use a concentrate versus an isolate. So a lot of the whey proteins you'll see out there are either concentrate or isolates. We have chosen to use the concentrate because it's actually much closer to the real whole food.
Yes.
So we haven't, pulled out all the different, healthy fats, all the hemoglobins and all the different, immune supporting benefits there actually is in a high quality way. And we see it as really as a food, like add on to your diet.
It's closer to a food.
It is food.
An isolate is much more of it's not isolated. A drug, but it's more of a process when you start to isolate out.
And still, even a concentrate. If some people say, but it's low on, it's slightly low in protein than in the isolate. When you look at it gram per gram, yeah, that's true. And I would also say if you're lactose intolerant, the isolate actually gets lactose out of there. But we've had that's anecdotal. We've had a lot of people who've been lactose intolerant. They said, and they've tried our protein powder, and they found out they can actually tolerate just fine. And I think this is just my personal opinion, right? But I think a lot of time they had a protein powder that had so many other weird ingredients in them.
Yeah.
And that was probably what they couldn't tolerate.
I would agree.
Yeah, but anyway, so we'll happily refund people if they try and can't tolerate it. But I think that the whole idea is if you get to that real food source, and that's what we wanted to, as close to that real food source as possible, with all the good properties there's actually in a high quality way, when it's something that's been grass fed and has been out there, I think it's a food add-on, and it's still incredibly high in amino acids and protein. So yes, you could go a little higher on an isolate on that per gram, but for most people, if you're maybe a bodybuilder trying to weigh in, in the percentage, I can see the point in it, but I don't think that's the case for most of us.
The high heavy metal count, was that mainly in plant-based proteins, or was it in whey proteins too?
There was in whey proteins too, and I think so. If you looked at it generally on all the data, they didn't share all the data, so we couldn't really see. But like kind of the pullouts that they made. So they made in these studies, I think the cleanest overall was whey. So if you look at heavy metals, then second cleanest was the beef based, but they were only so I think it was like 5 or 10 times cleaner whey based versus plants in general. beef was like twice as clean as plants in general. So it was like kind of that ratio that they found. I think a part of it comes from flavoring, but like I did saw a pullout of the stats where they mentioned that like even when they realized for flavor, and I think that was in Consumer Report, they did another study on protein powder as well, that they actually said they couldn't see that it was flavor dependent where the heavy metals. They would see it in both type of crops as well. But I think if I had no knowledge at all, what I would go with a vanilla based or non-flavored whey, because it looked like, at least in the Clean Label Project study, that the cacao based were more had higher amounts of heavy metals due to cacao in there, and plants over. So I say if you had a cacao-based plant protein at home, you like statistically, based on what we saw from there, there's a really big chance that you're above these heavy metal standards that you might want to hit. And again, I know that the standard is strict, and I know that the industry in general, I represent the industry and the consumer, so to speak. I'm a consumer because I die for these products myself. Like I want the product. I like what they can do for us. But I obviously also represent a brand here, and so I understand that some of them saying, the industry pushed back when they see these studies and said, "Well, what about other foods? And what about this? And the standard is so ridiculously strict." And I think that's actually, let's have a strict standard, because we want to actually maybe uphold a higher standard across other crops too.
Yes.
And say, okay, rice in general, like sweet potatoes, those are probably pretty high in heavy metals. Nobody knows because nobody is testing it for, it's not like you have a brand yet. You have a QR code on your sweet potatoes. You can see actually how much heavy metals in your sweet potato. So I think when we look at environmental toxins, it's a cumulative load that's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like doses makes the poison here, right? The dose makes the poison. It's not like a one-off now and then. It's what you do again and again. So I think when you have these multiple areas where you can get, pollution coming in, let's start by looking at the one that are highest risk. Protein category is definitely a high risk. We've seen that now. Clean that one up. But then let's start cleaning up some of these other crops instead of saying, well, it's unfair for us that we have to live up to high standards when, apples are not living up to a high standard.
Right.
Well, let's get everybody to live up to that standard. So I think this is just the beginning. And I think SB 1033, I hope that will be kind of the starting point for us. And I think we've shown now for the last in protein since 2018 that we've been able to publish every single batch of every single product before consumers will get access to it. There will be a lab report available. So we do not release the product. Pureit does never release any, product that does not have a fully third-party lab reports validated by Clean Label Project or IFAS and fish oil, but like validated by someone externally before your consumer can buy it. And I think if we can do it, other brands can do it too.
Yeah, I think that could be an industry standard for sure. I don't think that would be terribly difficult to ask. It's not a lot to ask. I think that people don't understand that a lot of these plants are bioaccumulators. That's literally what they do, is they pull out of the soil. And so pea is a really high bioaccumulator. Hemp is
it's for sure.
They literally plant hemp to clean fields out before they bring in a different crop. I mean, this is, from what I understand, like these plants are there for a reason. And so that's what they're doing. And then we're concentrating them down and we're ingesting a ton of it. And so even with a whey concentrate, anything that's concentrated, fish oil, anything that's concentrated, we have to look at and think, what are we getting here?
And it's data points. So it's not like it shouldn't be us guessing and all the brands like, we have the cleanest product out there. That's a data point.
Yeah.
You should be able to measure that, like benchmark them up against each other. And we'll get to a future of that. Obviously, with AI and everything coming, all these data points are so much easier to kind of aggregate and work with. It was fun the other day. I was like just trying to have Gemini just kind of run through all the different lab reports they could find on IFAS International Fish Oil Standard and rank the fish oils in there and see how are we comparing to all the data points that they have. Because if you do that manually, it's like that's
spreadsheet hell.
It would be hell, right? So, but now you can do. Obviously, you should. It doesn't read everything correct the first time, so you should be. I'm not sharing the data or anything, but I was like, oh wow, this is actually really interesting because I could see there was definitely some correlations between some of the brands and even all our own testing. I could see kind of the difference in different things, and I was like, this is exciting. This will show that we can use this to become better.
Yes.
We can use this to improve to make sure that consumers get a better, higher quality product at the end of the day. And that's the goal, right? Like, yeah, just I think it's a no-brainer. But
Yeah, it's hard. We live in a toxic soup of a planet, so it's getting harder and harder.
it's getting harder. But I'm also positive that when people, people that come together and when we have the data and we start getting that transparency out there, we can actually do something.
Yeah.
And I sincerely believe if you do something like that out of passion and other people will follow, it will also become, profitable business for people at the end of the day, because people do tend to follow the money, right? Like, so, I hope.
Well, you guys do a great job of it. And obviously, as a passion project, I mean, it's something that's important to you, and therefore it translated forward through your products. But it's, you're setting a standard that I think others can learn from. And you do it in a way where the products still remain very affordable. You're not charging a premium for that. It really, in comparison to other things, that's important to me. I don't get involved with brands unless people can afford them.
Sure.
I've had companies want to work with me and I'm like, well, this isn't available to the average person. So we have to be reasonable here. So I think you guys do a really outstanding job across the board of your products, of quality and price point.
And we appreciate that. The back team that is working much harder than I am and all these different things, they appreciate that quite a lot as well, because it's been a struggle because raw ingredient prices are going up.
Yeah.
So if you really want to keep focusing on these like super high end, the grass-fed whey, the wild caught fish, that stuff is just increasing. So keeping that is just important to us. And I think one thing that people actually, even more so we do get from our customers, we do quarterly surveys, and a lot of them is still like price point is still one of the reasons that they might stop our subscription on our protein.
Mm-hmm.
So we've actually and that's what the new product that's coming out, that's come out by the time we're talking, we've decided, okay, the single ingredient protein powder we're making without flavor, we can give more protein then, because we can remove the cost of the vanilla beans, like all of these things. So you'll actually get a slightly higher protein content. This way, it becomes a little bit more economically friendly for people. Even though the price of the raw material is increasing, we can keep that down. So that will go back to the pocket of all our consumers. So hopefully, some people say, okay, that's actually nice. I'll get I'll save some percentage here on that. But what people actually don't think about that often, I think it's way less transparent. That's how you figure out the real cost of omega-3 you're getting from your fish oil. Because I think here's a really big cost-benefit analysis you can do, because some brands will say, oh, it's one capsule, and it's, let's say it's like a $50 bottle, and there's 60 days in, but it's one capsule. It might only give you 500 milligrams of EPA, DHA, omega-3 fatty acid.
Yep.
And then you look at Puori, and it's like, oh, it's like $50 as well, but it's only 40-day serving here, not 60. So it's like, this is way more expensive. Yes, but we're giving you 2,000 milligrams.
Yes.
So you're actually getting, per dosage, you're getting 4 times what the other brand was doing. And I think if you do that calculation backwards, then, okay, wow, it's actually cheaper than the lesser quality. And that's where I think omega-3, when you are giving people a higher dose, higher concentration, high quality fish oil, you really have to do smart and, do that calculation.
You got to do math.
You got to do math, or get your AI tool to do the math for you. Because it is actually, you can end up buying a lesser quality product there in a category and getting way less omega-3.
That's way more per milligram.
Yeah.
That's across the board with supplements, though. That's something that a lot of people don't consider when they consider. I used to have a small supplement line, and one of the products I carried, people were like, well, I can get it for way less at Costco. And I'm like, you're getting 200 times less concentration, and dose matters. With fish oil, for instance, really, from what I understand, you don't start to get the impact of the anti-inflammatory properties until you hit around 3,000 milligrams. So 3 grams is usually what I tell people to take. Mm-hmm. For a starting dose, and I'll go all the way up to, and then don't do this at home, you guys. No. This is something I do with patients, but I'll bring people up to 10, 12 milligrams a day if I need to really move the needle. Mm-hmm. I know that there's the fish oil haters out there, which have you heard from the fish oil haters?
Not too much, no.
There's people who hate fish oil for whatever, there's a variety of reasons why people, they really fervently hate fish oil. They come at me whenever I talk about fish oil on Instagram. But anyway.
Interesting. Yeah.
It matters. You have to do the math.
Yeah, you have to.
On everything. Look at the milligrams you're getting or the grams. Look at the amount. Look at the dose. Look at the price. Do some backwards math. Make a decision that way. And then consider quality. Obviously, that's huge too. And people just aren't doing that.
No.
They just go to Costco and pick up whatever's cheap.
But I think that will change. we get more data points to actually prove that there's a difference, and people will hopefully get educated.
Yeah, and I get that people have to. They can afford what they can afford, but I think when it comes down to it, that when you're really trying to dial things in, and it depends on how much of a priority. Also, for me, like for instance, you met my daughter when she was little. I was single and I was in bankruptcy, and I made sure that she ate well, and I actually did not eat much at all. And when we did eat, we ate well, but it was priorities. I mean, we were broke as you can be, and it was priorities. So not to say that everybody can have access to everything, but people need to start thinking about, this is the long game.
It's
like this vessel is, this is the insurance.
One body, right?
Yes. This is the insurance policy overall.
And I think, but that's a whole different podcast, but I think there's a conversation. There's a lot of, like, I would call most the superfoods that are not that expensive, whether it's like sardines or mackerel or some of these fish that are like, it's not very expensive. You get high quality omega-3, you get protein, high quality protein, B vitamin, like there's a lot of good things.
Yeah.
So you could be smart about it. It's not easy. We don't say it's easy. Like, it's hard also because we're getting bombarded with opportunities of like I would say less healthy, highly ultra processed foods that are super addictive, easy to work. Like, it's hard.
Like protein popcorn, expensive, overpriced protein popcorn.
I don't want to do the calculation on the protein per gram in that one, right? That's probably expensive. Yeah,
I did. I looked at it. I looked at the price tag. I turned it around. My daughter actually recommended it because the ingredient list was pretty clean and simple. It was very simple. I like a simple ingredient list, but when at the end of the day, I was like, just give me some. There's other options.
Give me
an egg.
Yeah, an egg on the side. Yeah, and have real popcorn.
Yeah. Exactly. So something I wanted to talk about, because I know my audience I have a ton of people that came when I started talking about GLP-1s a couple of years ago and microdosing GLP-1s. I think that whey protein is hands down, like liquid protein, ways to get protein into you that is easy on the stomach is so important when people are taking these medications. And I think 1 in 6 to 1 in 8 Americans are on a GLP-1 or will use a GLP-1. And I think it's absolutely critical that they figure out a way to get easily digestible food and proteins in particular into their bodies. And so I think a protein shake is such an easy way to do that. Whether you're elderly, whether you're on a GLP-1, whether you have gastrointestinal issues, I personally have just a life of GI issues. And so whey protein, I'd be dead if it wasn't for whey protein. I wouldn't be here.
No. How do you reach your protein goal then? Like, what's kind of a look? Yeah.
A scoop of whey. Like I told you outside of this, I tried to get away from eating whey protein for a minute. I don't know why. I heard some nutritional therapist she seemed credible, but she said it'll make you get fat. And I was like, what? So, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of dairy, I think is the thing. I don't do great on dairy. But yeah, I get my meals in, and then I get my whey protein in. And it's like a scoop a day. That's the insurance policy. It's just insurance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I just have to, it's just an easy way to do it. And
do you do it in a shake water, or do you do it in, just water, just simple?
I can do like a extra, one thing I do love is like your chocolate protein powder. I'll put it in some oatmeal. I don't eat oatmeal very often, but I'll do like a slurry with oatmeal and with Greek yogurt, and just to get some fiber in there and get the protein. So I'll do like different little things like that. I'm not big on the whole like turning it into a dessert every night kind of thing. No. But I usually just choke it back in some water. I'm kind of a meathead that way. I just go to the gym, slam my protein.
There you go. Yeah. And again, I think that's an important notion of it as well. Like, go to the gym. Like,
go to the gym.
You get your strength training in. Move.
There is data showing that beyond the protein, the muscle protein synthesis needs the spark of the load. Like, you need to put the load on the body that the lifting of the weights does. And I really want to drive this home to the women listening, because they're all hung up on Dr. Gabrielle Lyon did such a magnificent job getting everybody really hip to the idea that like we need more protein, which I think she did God's work on that. But they still seem to think they can get away from the gym.
And she's pushing the gym pretty hard too, right?
She does, but they don't hear it. They just hear everybody hears the part that seems the easiest. I actually think going to the gym's easier than hitting my protein macros. Like that, it's way easier than eating.
I actually tend to agree with you on that, yeah. Also because of when you get into it, you just have to, is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks in, then you're addicted.
Yes.
Most people will get addicted because
It's
Like
so fun.
it's not just the fun, but also the feeling, right? Like your body will just yeah.
Yeah,
You can't live without it, right?
I told you about my injury. I had that, or I was telling Corbin, I had a disc herniation in 2024, and it really set me back, and it got me completely out of my cycle of the gym. And I had been like a meathead gym goer for a decade, hard at least. And I mean, and then I moved here, and like all the stress of moving. And anyway, I fell away from the gym, and I recently just went back.
Yeah.
Like this morning, I got up and I looked at my husband. I'm like, we got to go to the gym before I have all these podcasts, because I'll be crazy all day if I don't. But it's really concerning in there. It's a lot of very, very thin women with no butts doing all upper body, like a lot of just arm work, trying to get these like Demi Moore skinny arms as the thing right now.
Okay.
And they have no lower body. And I'm just like, lady, eat your protein and build your glutes.
Do your squats, yeah.
Do your squats. Yeah. Everybody has to squat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, right now I actually have the herniated disc. So I know how you're feeling.
It's such a bummer.
It's such a bummer because there's so many things you can't do.
I know.
Like, and I have I have a background in CrossFit. I did a lot of years in CrossFit. I had a CrossFit gym. I was a personal trainer before, so I loved like this entire universe of just being physically active. And I think when you're limited by something like injury, I always tell myself I gotta do something. And the PTs I'm working with and so on will always have me move, right? Like it's never, don't do anything now because you have a herniated disc. It's like, we can do all of this stuff. So just forget about the other for a period of time and get stronger in X, Y, Z instead. But you always like, you feel it so much. Like right now I can't squat. So it's like, yeah.
It messes with your head.
It does, yeah.
I can't do barbell deadlifts anymore. I can't do any axial loading. My disc herniation was like a high lumbar, which is a really dangerous place to herniate the disc because it can cause all kinds of issues beyond just pain and minor disability. And I can't axial load my spine, so I can't even do like a trap bar squat or deadlift. I can only do goblet squats, so I'm limited on the weight I can go up to, and it's such a bummer.
Can you build it up again? Or will it be like a...
I'm just, you know what? I'm in that phase right now where like it gets worse before it gets better. I have autoimmune disease that attacks my spine, so I have a lot of pain, and I'm just like, I'm doing it, you know? And my husband keeps saying, are you okay? Like you keep waking up in the morning early because you said, you know, that your back hurts. And I'm like, but it hurts in a good way. I don't know how to explain that, you know, but it hurts.
Feel that it's like,
I know how to do it. I know how to rehab myself. I have a pretty strong rehab background, and I've had a lot of great strength and conditioning coaches over the years, and I've had a lot of injuries I've worked around. So I'm doing it intelligently, but man, it is a haul. And I really feel for the middle-aged women out there who don't have an experience or background with strength training. Like I'm in there feeling out of place and feeling, you know, my body composition isn't where I'm used to it, and I'm awkward and I'm weak and I can't lift what I'm used to lifting. And then I see these middle-aged women who have it's a skill.
It's a skill.
And they don't have the skill, and they don't think they need to hire somebody to get the skill. And I can see where they have gone awry, but then we've got all these really skinny women that are in their 40s and 50s and 60s. And again, they have no butts. And I'm like, what are you going to land on when you fall down? Yeah. You're going to break your hip, lady.
It's your
like
biggest
have fun
muscle,
with
right?
have fun with your hip fracture.
Yeah.
Like they're just Ozempic-ing and, you know, GLP-1ing and exercising themselves into oblivion. And they have no lower body to, like, that's truly the insurance policy.
Sure.
To longevity is like a good set of glutes and legs.
Good set of glutes, yeah.
That's what you need. That's what you need getting older, you know? Yeah. So, and I think that getting enough protein on top of that is
it's a piece of the puzzle.
Yes. Yeah. Like, why would you work so hard in the gym and then not eat enough?
Oh, for sure.
Or not consume enough protein. And so that's where whey protein powder is like, I got to do it.
It's convenient and it's easy, and it provides a high load of your amino acids. So.
Yeah, I can't eat that much meat.
No.
So.
And not even like straight after training, where you might actually have a higher muscle protein synthesis window, a more open window after workout, right? So.
Yeah. So talk to me about that, since you have that background in training. What do you think? I know what the studies are saying recently, but what are your thoughts on timing with protein and the gym? Do you think it matters, or do you think it's just more of what you accumulate throughout the day?
I've read and listened to both sides of it, and I can see some benefit in both. I would say that from a mental perspective, and this is not science-based anyway, I feel like if I get something right after I've done a good, it's mentally fulfilling for me.
Yeah,
Like,
same.
and I'm always more hungry for proteins after I've done a good strength training session. So I'm like, whether that is like a placebo or something for me, but I feel like I need a big meal. I need to do something. I need to get. So I would say overall for most people, it's probably the total daily consumption. If you ask like Dr. Lyon, as we mentioned before, she would say it's also really important to hit it multiple times during the day. It's not enough with 2 meals. They would
Right.
say probably 4 meals if possible, depending on how much you need to take in. And that might actually be true when you get older. Because again, you want to maintain and build as much muscle as possible. So I would say if that is the case, the idea of having 3 main meals and then a protein shake on the side is a really good way of spreading out like 4 active doses of leucine to hit that muscle protein synthesis. But from a daily perspective, what I do personally is I write down at night how much protein I got.
Oh,
And
smart.
so I guess part of my night journal. So that's one of my health bullets that I have. It's just like calculating, and it's just calculating in my head because I'm so used to measuring but I think, wow, now it's 2 days in a row. I've been so far from my protein goal.
Yeah, that's smart.
And obviously, again, we talked about quality so much before, but so I care about quality. So I rarely use the plant-based as part of my protein goal. I know, like I do get quinoa. I will maybe say 5 grams, so on extra, but it's very. It's not like that I'm getting my protein goals hit by the plant-based side of it. It is by eggs, fish, meat, whey protein, basically. But yeah, it's a good way to reflect on it.
I like that. That's smart because you can go 3. When I'm stressed out, I can go 3, 4, 5 days in a row. I haven't eaten hardly anything at all. And I'm still going to the gym, and that's how I end up injured, right? As we get older, that's our ligaments and tendons are not getting what they need.
No, for sure.
And they're not recovering.
It becomes visual when you write down, and so to be honest, I probably won't write journal more than 4 or 5 days a week. I try to aim for more. Like that's real life that's happening. But when you put it down on paper, it becomes you kind of pull yourself in your neck, and next day you kind of start in a better mindset because you want to try to hit it. So you want to get back on track. Like that's the goal. Don't let it slide. Like get back on track.
Well, the other thing too is, especially for those taking a GLP-1, you can get to the end of a whole day if they're dosing standard dosing, which I'm not a huge fan of, but they'll get through the whole day and they'll realize they have hardly eaten anything, and you can't make up for it because the worst thing you can do on a GLP-1 is eat a bunch of food and then go to bed.
Okay.
You will end up having such heartburn and such discomfort all night long. It's everything just sort of sits there and ferments. It's not fun. And so protein powder is a really easy thing that you can choke down really fast and go to bed, like, because it's mostly a liquid. And so that's something I tell my patients is, well, you can, if you find that you're coming up really short throughout the day, you can slam back a couple scoops of protein powder and go to bed, as long as you keep it with water or something thin, because you're not going to have that nighttime bolus of solid food sitting in your stomach.
Interesting.
It's a huge one. Or just have your shaker ready in the morning with the protein powder in it and get up and put water in it and drink it down.
And get going, yeah.
Like, just non-negotiable, do it that way. And that's another easy way to get it in, especially autoimmune patients. I don't know what it is, but if they can get protein in them really early, first thing in the morning, their immune system, it's their blood sugar, it's all of it, it's the cortisol, but I think things tend to be a little kinder to them.
Okay. And would you, you would rank it more important to get like the protein in even at night, like versus, going to bed without having eaten for the last like 2 or 3 hours, like to get more deep sleep, for example, because you want it to be more of a fast state? Or
I don't think of protein powder as like a food, though. I don't think of it as, I wouldn't say eat a meal, but a little something. I'm one of those people that wake up at 3 a.m. because my blood sugar goes haywire, especially if stress is high. So I might eat a little piece of cheese or a little something, but protein powder I just think of as like a supplement.
Okay.
And then, add in some creatine in the morning. You can put your creatine in your protein powder in the morning. You can just have it ready to go.
Yeah.
I think I actually clinically never used creatine for muscle. I have always used creatine for brain.
Wow.
Like that's a long time ago. The early studies coming out on cognition, I was like, sign me up. And all the little old ladies in my practice, everybody got creatine and everybody got protein powder. And this is 15 years ago, so it's not the meatheads I'm after. It's the little old ladies and their cognition.
And I think that's really, because I think everybody that we've seen where it's not the meat, but it's the little old ladies that they see by far the biggest benefit.
Yeah.
When they start to add like a decent amount of protein from a protein shake and creatine, they see results.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
I'm thinking in terms of not just avoiding Alzheimer's and dementia, but I'm thinking in terms of avoiding a fall.
Oh, for sure.
Like not just muscle mass, but the fact that your central nervous system is working better to communicate with your muscles so you don't fall down. It's not even about frailty at that point. It's just like, is your brain communicating to the limbs, And so I think that's a big win too.
Interesting. But we could go on and on and all the different things you can do, right? But I do think it's interesting to see that like the top 3 or 5 supplements like to add on to your diet is very much the same. Like if you were a younger male versus an older lady, like I think creatine, omega-3 protein to hit your protein goal, you get really far. And then there's definitely some D vitamin and magnesium and some of the other stuff on the side. But I think that's the hardest part to probably get through the diet as well, where it has an impact to add it to your diet.
Those are just good basics. And they haven't changed. It doesn't matter what comes along. It doesn't matter what fancy peptides are out there. I still recommend the same
basics. Old. Yeah.
And go to the gym.
Go to the gym and eat real food. Yeah.
Yes, eat real food. Yeah. Well, so the other thing I love about your protein powder is that it's not full of GMOs and pesticides. So you guys test for all that in this quality control.
Yeah. It's part of it. You can again, in your scan, you can actually see what's in it. And GMO is actually not a thing in Europe. Right, so
I did not know that.
No, in Denmark, it's not. You will never find GMO crops.
Really?
Yeah,
I had no idea. They just don't allow it.
We just don't allow it.
Huh.
So, but so that's not a thing for us. But again, if it's like it is in US, so obviously we make that clear on the packaging and label as well. And then the pesticide, the antibiotics, all the different things that you do not want, basically, from your whey protein or your plant protein.
Wow, I had no idea that was not a thing. They've been experimenting on us for a long time here.
There's a lot of things. I think the way that we've set up chemically in Europe basically is a lot safer versus US. And I think right now, actually, you're starting to adapt more and more of the rules that we have in Europe for chemically safety. So the way that you have to like have way more documentation before you add a new chemical to the market or a new kind of pesticide or herbicide and so on. So that's hopefully a direction that will help benefit the mass of Americans as well.
Yeah. Okay. So very clean products. I love them all. I'm so impressed with your product line. I am so excited you came all the way out here. I hope you have other exciting things to do in the States.
I only come for you. No, I have a few other things at the same time. I try to make it worth it. But,
okay, good.
But I would come for you for sure.
Well, I'm so excited. You guys have been so generous to offer my listeners a huge discount. And I think they get the shaker and the protein and get $50 off. So really generous deal.
Go to Puori.com. Puori comes from pure origin.
That's okay, I was going to ask
it's
you.
A contraction, yeah. So some people have a hard time spelling it with the P-U and O, but and then / Dr. Tina. That's your landing page, and you can easily see what you get, and you can get the good starting kit. So that you get going, you'll get the shaker and the protein, and it does. I think the discount also applies to the other products if you're into creatine, omega-3. So.
Awesome, and this is metal. You guys, which is so huge for me. Like, it's not plastic. I threw away all my plastic shaker bottles when I moved. This was the one thing I brought from Oregon of that, in that category. So it's metal, which I love. This is a nice. That's a nice high ticket item. It's a good
shaker bottle. Yeah.
Yeah.
We like it, and so I think that's the easiest way to go about it. And if you have any questions for any of us, just like reach out. If there's something you're like consumer or like, why should I take this versus that and so on, just ask us. And then at the end, like scan our QR code.
Yes.
I really, really encourage that. I think we want this like to be a thing that you do across all the products in risk of contamination. I want a QR code on dark chocolate bar.
Yeah.
We talked about chocolate before, right? Like I can't buy a chocolate based on data.
Yeah.
I buy it based on, I think this is clean.
Yep.
So, and I think we need to get to a point where that will cross over from protein powder, fish oil to, real food items. So,
yeah. I love it. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show today. It was such a treat.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the Dr. Tina Show. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson. Theme song is by John the Guilt. You can watch the full video version of this podcast inside the Spotify app or on YouTube. As always, you can email the podcast at podcast@drtina.com. That's DRTYNA. And if you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find all of my offerings on my website at drtina.com. For more shows by my team, go to wellnessloud.com. See you next time, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practices of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is intended not to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.